So let's
that's
try to
funny.
start sort of at the beginning with y'all, because this is an interesting story with John and Jessica especially. And we'll get Mason involved as well, but this is y'all's first band. The
Yes.
bookends here, and y'all the founding members of the band
Yes.
as well.
Yes, we are.
This is so cool, like that this is the first experience as a live band. So prior to that, I mean, there has to be a genesis to your story as far as music goes. So what's kind of the beginning? What kind of got you interested, all three of y'all, into the music kind of stuff?
It kind of runs in my family a little bit. My dad played steel for Mickey Gilley, and then he toured everywhere and played out here in Longview. And then, it's kind of around the music scene. I've got an uncle that was a drummer that I'd go watch as a kid, and it just kind of the way I came up and the way life went for me. Music's always something I fell to. So I decided one day that I've had a drum kit since I was 12, so why don't I do something with it? And I went and started jamming with these people who just really weren't all that serious about music. And then I met Jess and her, and I started this little journey right here.
And how long has the band been together?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Nice. So what were kind of your first musical experiences and stuff?
Well, I started in church, wee lad. There was never a question of, are you gonna perform? you were told you were gonna perform, Christmas pageants, whatever, in the Baptist community. But so that stage presence has always been there. But then when I was in high school, I joined a band with Donnie Dotson from White Trash Wannabes. I don't know if you know him.
Of course.
Yeah, that's like my big brother, and we used to they used to sneak us into bars out in Uncertain, and we used to play out there, and like anything that we could get our hands on, we were there and we were playing and throwing down, and then I quit for a while because I needed to be a mom. But I always knew I'd come back out. And so it was funny because when I met this person over here,
That's your name calling.
I met him and I was like, I'm serious about this if you're serious about this. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm serious about this. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, John, I don't think you realize how good you are, because like that was the biggest fight with this one over here is he didn't believe in himself. And so I was like, John, we'd like go to jams and he'd see other drummers and he's like, I'm not, I'm like, yeah, you are ready. I was like, feet to the flames, let's go. And he's been a fucking animal ever since. And now I'm like, would you sit the fuck down? Calm down, sit down. Never.
Sometimes you need to have that like kind of indirect ego from
Yeah.
somebody else. Somebody else has to be your ego for you. I get that.
Yeah.
You always got to chase something, man.
Yeah.
There's somebody or something out there that's always going to be better than what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you're not chasing,
Sometimes if you don't chase, if that keeps you from chasing, that's very detrimental.
fear will kill you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's always going to be somebody better than you, no matter
Always,
how good
man.
you ever
Always.
get. And then even if you're the best, your mind is going to tell you you're not. So,
Right.
I mean, what's the point of ever believing that?
Well, well, and the biggest thing is, and I've heard all of us say this multiple times, like, there's never a point where we can't learn something from somebody.
Of course.
We just take it, what we need from it, and what we don't, we leave it at the side and let whoever else.
Otherwise,
pick
you're
it up.
stuck at the red light all the time.
Right.
You're never going to move.
Right.
That's right. Mason, what were your first experiences like?
Man, as a little kid, I would go to my great grandparents' house, and my great granddad had a little shop out in it was like a little room on the back side of their garage. He would sit in there and talk to his friends on his ham radio, and he had an acoustic guitar always sitting in the corner. And every time I'd go out there and visit with him and just pick it up and start strumming it, and he said, "You need to learn how to play that thing." And I was probably 6 years old at that time, and another few years passed, and I started playing at around 12 or 13, and sky's the limit.
It's always fun to hear somebody's first experiences with music, because somebody like me, I'm not a musician. I'm the guy that is inquisitive and curious about where that starts. I wasn't around instruments when I was a kid, and like drummers are really interesting to me because as a parent, I would have never in a million years bought a drum set for my kids because I enjoy silence. right? So it's funny how many drummers out there
I had a
are
big house.
second generation drummers, though. It's
Yeah.
honestly like, well, my dad was a drummer, my grandfather was a drummer. It's like being in the force, you know.
We had a big house, had a 2-story house, so it was like I'd be upstairs playing, and you'd hear me a little bit, but
Yeah,
it was a little bit easier. And then at some point, my mom kicked me out. We had this gazebo outside. She said, "That's where you do music at." So it went from just annoying her to the entire neighborhood at that point. So,
I feel you.
And
man.
now we're still doing that.
Of course, that's
Yeah.
part of the love, right?
Yeah, except now it's different because when we come to practice, especially in the summertime, or like, when it's warm, we'll open the door and the window, and his neighbors will actually come
They'll just
out and
sit
sit
out
out
and
on their
listen.
porch, and they'll like listen to us practice.
Yeah.
And so I think that's pretty cool.
we haven't had
Yeah,
any
they
noise
were-
complaint
Well,
at all.
never. And
At all.
yeah, it's like they get a free concert, like Mason said, a free concert, and then for them to actually just sit outside and want to listen, like we can't be too bad.
Tell them everything.
Yeah.
That's a question I have a little bit
Yeah.
later. We'll talk about that feeling a little bit later. This next question is not really musical related. You can make it musical related if you want, but what are some lessons that you've learned from your folks kind of growing up that you still kind of lean on today?
I'm gonna let you take that one, Mason.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I'm gonna let you take that, partner.
Just to keep your head held high, no matter what. Don't ever focus or worry about what other people think of you. Just do you, and if you enjoy doing what you're doing, then stick with it, and that's all that matters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What you got?
That ain't learning shit.
Well,
You
no,
didn't learn
that-
shit?
my stepdad
I
actually
learned
just
a little
died a few days ago. The guy that raised me and the majority of my life, and so I've had to do a lot of reflection in the past like 4 days. And
Sorry to hear
something
that.
that I took away from that was, don't wait too long to go talk to somebody that you need to tell them like you forgive them
Yeah.
and that it's okay, regardless of what they got to say back to you. Like, don't worry about what their response is. Just go get that off of your conscience. That way, when this situation does happen, you're not left with that feeling of guilt.
Mhm.
So,
We talked to Craig Wallace recently. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a former, not former, he's a Texas tornado inductee and lives in Canton area. But he said the quickest way to forgiveness is compassion.
Yeah.
I had never heard that before, and I was like, man, it's so true if you really think about it.
just growth and compassion. Yeah, growth is a big deal.
Yeah.
You don't understand a lot when you're younger. Things
Sure.
don't make a lot of sense. Then when you get older, you start understanding why people were a certain way.
Well, a lot of times it takes going through it.
Yeah, you gotta
life
put their shoes on.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't realize what's happening until you're dealing with it yourself, for sure.
Yep.
And there can be a lot of unknown factors that create angst and anxiety and things like that.
All right. Well, I got one.
Oh wow! Okay,
All right.
When I gave her ideas.
No.
I'm gonna steal your answer.
Mine's
She's looking at your
completely
paper,
different, sir. So my family has taught me that the family you're born with is not always considered really your family.
Mm.
Like, these people are my family. I get, like, they ride harder for me than my family ever has.
Mhm.
And, like, no shade on my family. Sometimes you grow up and you realize you don't want to be that human. And that's okay.
Mhm.
But I believe that if you follow who you are, you find your tribe.
Right. And honestly, when you're growing up in a situation, you're closer to the flame, right?
Right.
So at that point in time, you can make one of two choices. You can either fall in line and do what those above you did, or you can kind of rebel against that and go in a different direction. For me, I came from a long line of alcoholics, and so I had two choices growing up. I was either going to be an alcoholic, or I was going to be just a complete mental block on alcohol. So now, like, when I'm around drunk people, man, I really close up. I'm like a clam when that happens, and that's because of my family. So it's about being close to that flame. And sometimes people that have your same blood are not the ones blowing your horn the loudest either. So
Well, and I'm I'm a generational chain breaker. You understand me?
Yeah.
Like, I refuse to I know the product of children you raise because I was one of them.
Right.
So I want different for my children, and it's not any knock against them. Like, they probably did the best that they could. And I'm grateful for what they did when they did do it. But it's not for me, and it's not for mine.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they taught you a lesson, whether it was intended or not.
They did. Well, and they taught me, really, to be grateful for the people that you do have.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about numbers. It's about quality. You know, the quality of people that you get.
I love that. Yeah. Great stuff, man. That's why I asked that question, because I try to make these interviews to kind of be full circle. I want the end to kind of circle back around to where we started from. And it's weird how it works. You guys will see it. It will happen somehow. It'll circle back. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it almost always does. But so let's get into the birds of a feather. So the name is obviously extremely unique. I know there's significance to it. I don't know what that is. So what is the significance? And John and Jessica, you guys are, I know what it's like trying to come up with the name of a band. So take us into the room as you guys
This was a place when I joined her, with what she had going on. This was her vision.
Yeah. Birds of a Feather was my vision. And my last name is Peacock. And so, you know, birds of a feather, they flock together. And so that's really how it came about. Like John, I was from, I don't know how I don't know. There's certain people that are in my life now that I don't know how we didn't cross paths.
Right.
Like, you know this person, I know this person. What do you mean? I hung out with this. Oh, I was at this party. Me too. Well, you were? Yeah.
It's just all about timing.
You know, and timing is everything, man.
Yeah.
And so it just wasn't meant to be at that moment. But so birds of a feather, we flocked together. New Diana, not to be confused with old Diana.
I knew her once.
What a broad.
And then you
She
got
wore
Marshall.
a lot of lipstick, y'all.
Yeah. Her fruit was fruin'.
So other than the three of y'all, there's a fourth member of the band who's not here today, and that's Jennifer Leard, right? So I know that you guys have had different iterations of the band over the years.
Yeah.
This current crop is ridiculously good.
Yeah.
This has to make y'all feel good where y'all are at right now, right?
No. Yeah. Okay. So we don't believe in being comfortable.
Well, of course not.
Okay.
Yeah, complacency is death.
Oh man. Yeah,
I agree.
definitely. So like, one of us is always unsettled, and I love that about us. It's a double-edged sword, really, because where I think that we're right on path, or vice versa. If John or Mason thinks that we're right on path, and I'm like, no, you know. So one of us is always pushing the other to, like, we're not like this. We got this, and this. Let's go. And so,
and obviously, looking at that, you can feel grateful for that. But when it happens, it's got to be a little annoying, right?
well, no,
like,
it's uncomfortable in the moment because.
I thought we were there.
Yeah, well, we also have to remember that in those little moments, like, for example, we played a show in Texarkana at Universal Vibe, and it was pretty awesome. We were on this huge stage. We had fire dancers playing.
I saw that.
Like, it was so much fun. And then, like, so while we're in the moments of those, it's not uncommon for one of us to look at each other on stage and be like, soak it in, boys.
That's surreal. It's a very surreal
like, soak it in.
environment,
Like, this is the moments where we need to go,
and that's when you look back at the times where Jessica had to talk you into it.
Yeah.
And those times when you're talking yourself out of things. Those surreal moments of just experiencing life and what you're putting on, because I saw those videos. They were dope as hell.
Yeah.
I know what that's like, being in the moment, and then you look back at it, you fangirl over that moment a little bit sometimes.
Well, it's funny because when we went to Nashville, like, one of the first things that I ever said to John, just meeting him, you know, is, hey, John, want to go to a jam? You know, and so we were standing in line because we had to have, you know, they did media coverage, and It's crazy.
Hectic.
It's so crazy down there on the red
It's a
carpet.
good crazy.
It is
though.
good crazy,
Yeah.
but
Those
when you
bars are
never
good time.
experience
It's exhausting.
it's exhausting.
Absolutely.
Like it really is. So we're like, so we're in this line and we're like, you know, and then I sat there for a minute and I looked at John and said, "Hey John, you want to go to a jam?" And he just looked at me and shook his head
That's
like,
where it
"Girl."
started. Went for 30 years.
Oh, God, you're natural. You have to, right? I mean, you have
Yeah. So like it's little moments like that we have to remind each other, you know, we're on our way, but we can't not take notice of where we're at.
right.
Because I don't want to be there and then look back and be like, "Oh man, you know, those were some good times, you know,
Yep.
and we didn't take them for what they were."
Right. You have to live those moments in the moment too. Like, I've been on both sides of that red carpet, so I know how it is. Like, I've been the one that put the show on. I've been the one, you know, interviewed on the red carpet too. So I know how exhausting both sides can be of that. It's definitely interesting to say the least. Especially when you guys, your name is there. Like you're invited there as a nominee. That's a
Right.
huge thing. And I mean, you're from East Texas. You're in Nashville. Like, completely out of your nest, so to speak. See what I did there?
Oh yeah, I seen it.
The birds.
The bird's nest.